right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Corey Donovan. I'm a co-founder of ImpactPHL. We are a 10-year-old nonprofit here in the Philadelphia region, encouraging investors to align their money with their values and helping to connect local capital to local investment opportunities. So thanks again for joining us. Got a great program here. Um, First and foremost, I want to thank our sponsors and those who help fund our work, which we literally couldn't do without their support. So I want to thank them. Um, I want to give you a heads up on some programs that we have coming up here. We don't have dates for these yet, but I think these are some great sessions that are very much applicable to Philadelphia in the moment in time we're at and help it to connect local capital to local opportunities. So keep an eye on your emails as we get those scheduled and mapped out. You all should be on our email list now, so there'll be more information coming to you in the next couple of weeks about some of these. A reminder that we're recording this session today, so we will be able to post this to the event page of our website for future reference. If you all want to refer back to it, if you want to share it out with any other folks. And then you've registered for this event, so we'll also send an email out in about a week or so once we get this event up on YouTube and on our website, so you'll get a link to that as well. I want to thank our speakers for making time today. We've got a full program, so I'm going to try to keep us on time here and hand things over to Vanessa to help guide us the rest of the way here. So, Vanessa?
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Rumor has it that we had about 170 some odd folk register for this, so I hope you've all joined us. So today we're going to talk about Invest for Better. Have some wonderful speakers. We're going to be telling our experiences and going over the program because for some people it's kind of new. Next slide, please. All right, got to do the full disclaimer here. This presentation and all information included herein is provided for informational purposes and is not intended to provide financial planning, legal, tax, accounting, or investment advisory services. Strategies or descriptions of any specific investments, which we will have because we're sharing our stories, do not imply a recommendation or an endorsement. Nothing on this site is a solicitation, offer, or recommendation to buy or sell any security or to adopt any investment strategy. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of your entire investment. All right, so let's do a little background of the national organization that is Invest for Better. I actually just went to a meeting of the steering committee, and I retired in 2021, and they said they started in 2020. So I was just one of the sort of early people who got in. So it was started by Ellen Rimmer and Janine Furbo. There are several other women involved, but those are the two main ones. And Janine Furbo is the author of the book, Activate Your Money, that's used as sort of the core curriculum. Their vision is catalyzing a movement with millions of women. They have lofty goals where we're educated, enabled, and empowered to activate the power of our investing for social good. And that means many things to many different people. And so that's why we lead these circles in order for folks to figure out, well, what is your social good? What do you want to move on? And so they have a mission to empower women to understand the power of their investment assets and align them with social, environmental values and activate their resources. Several values that are aligned with those vision and mission. Let's go to the next slide. So how does it work? We meet in circles of 8 to 20 women. Right now, at the national level, all of those circles are done online. They actually started when they first started. They were meeting in person, but then COVID came along, and so that got shut down pretty quickly. So the national ones, mostly it's meeting online. We'll get to Philadelphia when we turn to Margaret in a couple of minutes here. They meet in person. And what is it? It's a 7-module curriculum on values-aligned investing. And they keep it small between 8 and 20 because we're really trying to build community. And when we've done surveys with the women, both who are interested in coming and who have come, actually the primary thing that women are looking for is community. So that's something to remember. We do a great job at the national level, but Philly does an amazing job because it really makes a difference when you're meeting off Zoom and in person. They've also had deep dive courses where they'll go into a particular subject for just 3 sessions as opposed to 7. I know I've enjoyed the 3 session group on gender aligned investing and one on financial education, the basics, financial planning, the basics. That this is an investing, the overall cohort, the main program that we offer is about investing. So there's a bit of an assumption that sort of the basics of, sort of financial management, net worth, things like that are already, you've already covered that, but we do cover a little bit of it. And so we're sharing a lot of resources. We're sharing a lot of actual investment opportunities. Again, during the cohort, we're not making any recommendations of, you should purchase this. We're sharing them as information and education only. And then we have these wonderful monthly events. There is a whole catalog of webinars since 2020. We have at least one every 2 months, sometimes even monthly, of amazing programs, people talking about investing, talking about aligned investing, talking about individual investments, talking about their experiences. So that you can find many of those actually on YouTube, no paywall or anything. You can also join Invest for Better National for free and get access to quite a few things. So the resources that we have also include, besides the deep dives and the webinars, is we do have sometimes on-site events. A couple of weeks ago, they were in San Francisco at a fantastic event. I didn't get to go, unfortunately, but they came together with several investment opportunity organizations. Sphere Fund, I think Addisina, Social Capital was there, one of my favorites. And about, I think, 5 or 6 others. And so I think Janine was at the meeting the other day and said there were about 100 or more women there. So that was a really great event. Next slide, please. So just want to give you a sense of what it's covering over these 7 sessions. So understanding your money story explores that relationship that we have with money that started when we were kids, right? Something happened or our families handled money in a way that lives with us today. And so understanding that backstory can be helpful in moving forward and looking at, well, how do I handle my investments today and how do I feel about this issue of alignment? You also got some of your early issues of values probably from childhood. So we talk about that in the first session. In each session, the homework that you're doing beforehand is filling out some worksheets where you're sort of digging into, in this case, your backstory. In other cases, you're looking at your own investments, things like that. So over the 14 weeks, there's 7 sessions, so you have a week in between to do some homework. Taking inventory is essentially doing a net worth statement. I like to call it that. It's a very simple worksheet. Some people get a little intimidated by Excel, so we don't force you to use Excel, but we do have that as an option where you're listing what are all of your assets, where are they? Because you need to know this if you're going to move your assets. What are you going to trade for one for the other? Beyond the dollar then starts to move into the first and second asset classes, which is let's look at your cash and your fixed income. And so looking at institutions that you're already holding money with and doing some analysis, we have some wonderful online tools that we can look at. For example, Mighty Deposits, we can, you put in the code for your bank and you can see what your bank is investing and how are they using their money. And then we move into 2 sessions focused on the stock market and equity investments. So that's exploring the stock market, where we mostly using Morningstar to look at funds and look at the tools that they have. So you can pull out essentially the quantitative data you might want to look at when you're analyzing and considering, do I want to change my investments? And then the second session that focuses on equities is really looking at the tools that are really wonderful, like As You Sow, where you can plug in your your ticker symbol, and then find out, well, what kind of things are they invested? Are they invested in fossil fuels? Are they still invested in tobacco? Things like that. So again, we're offering lots of tools over these sessions. Number six is private investing. That's always my favorite. And a lot of people really like that because a lot of us haven't been exposed to it. And then finally, we close with talking about and looking at a tool to look at advisors, financial advisors, and think about, well, now that you've had these 7 amazing sessions, what are you going to do with this to move forward? Next slide, please. This is a wonderful picture of the Philadelphia group. So I'm now going to turn it over to, let's see here, Margaret Berger Bradley.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for Vanessa for sharing a little bit more about Invest for Better, what it is nationally. I wanted to pick up here about what Invest for Better Philadelphia is. I still want to always encourage people to explore wherever you are, because I know people join this webinar from all over, and Invest for Better is a phenomenal resource nationwide. In Philadelphia, we're really the best. Um, Nope, I'm going to stay on that slide for an extra moment. What I want to point us to for a moment is this banner. 10 years ago, Impact PHL was formed, 10 years ago next month, in fact, quite exactly, and has focused more on engaging high net worth individuals, family offices, foundations, other institutional investors and values aligned in local investing. But this field began because people were part of a movement, not because there was a facility or a vehicle or any of the language we use about financial life now. It's because people and congregations moved with their values aligned. And so, as a board member from the beginning of Impact PHL, what I was hungry for a few years ago was to again grow this up in community. What we know is that when women have money, families and communities do better. In the next handful of years, more women will have more money. And so this is a moment, this is an opportunity. And this isn't an opportunity only for those of us who are inheriting money or expect to have many millions. It's about wherever we sit. And so this is a wonderful, makes me smile photo here. It gives a taste of women who have been involved and gives a sense of who this is for. It's really for any of you. We set out very specifically. There are a lot of organizations that work with affluent women in moving their money. There are a lot of organizations that work with affluent people and institutions, but we've been very focused, and I have to thank Helen, who was a wonderful partner in the beginning on this, very clear that our intention is to focus on learning that drives us to action, where we minimize barriers to entry and avoid gatekeeping. Most of us don't know language of private investing, but why are we not allowed to know it? There's certain transactions we can't do if we're not an accredited investor. It doesn't mean we can't develop an ear for it before we're an accredited investor. We are really focused on engaging women in their own journeys. It took me a moment to realize values aligned didn't mean Margaret's values aligned investing. We're not judging what pace people take, what choices are right for them, but really embracing the ability to build that financial muscle, to grow something up where you are the owner of your resources and can do what you want with them. And we're doing this in a way, our commitment to each other is that we'll keep it sustainable and not burdensome. If this is fun, we'll continue to engage. If it isn't fun, it's not going to work. We'll share this slide with you all. It gives a taste from a evaluation that we did last year of what we heard from women who participated. For many, as Vanessa already hinted at, for many, what the value was here was having some community. For many, it's that combination of confidence and competence. People who told us, I was able to ask questions that I never had asked before of my financial advisor. Someone who told us, I was able to make an argument for moving to a values aligned investor to those who were the gatekeepers for a trust fund. And others who just were able to start thinking about what's the first $40 I move to something that's more values aligned. 70% of those who participated did something, move money in some way. About half move money to some local investment, in some cases, many cases, focusing first on where they banked, recognizing that putting money in a credit union or a community bank gives the credit union $10 for every dollar that you have landing there. to do other things. So this is just the beginning of what our community is creating. This is our most recent circle, held here in Philadelphia, just April, May. It's a placeholder here also to remind me to share with you, as Vanessa will at the end as well. There are circles now forming for the fall. Our commitment in Philly is to try and find you and meet you wherever you are. Continue to hold circles all year round, because for someone fall's good, for someone spring's good. We've been doing them in person because in person has been quite joyful. But we know that not everybody can do that. So we're also holding a hybrid circle this fall, first session and last session to meet people in person with the learning online. And Vanessa holds a circle specifically for women of color, trying to offer it in whatever form works for you so that you too can just start to take the little steps to get your money to move more aligned with your values. We are a community that's going to be driven by what it is the women in this community want to create and want to do. We're looking at private investments together because 40 of our 200 have said they're eager to learn more about that. But this is really something, and I would encourage you who are here from other communities as well to figure out, what do you want to do and how do you make it happen? Financial money's supposed to be power with this, and how do we use ours? And I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, Margaret. All right. I believe next we have Jodie Harris.
Hi,
Yes.
everyone. I am Jodie Harris. I am currently the president of PIDC, Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation. I was formerly the director of the CDFI Fund. And prior to that, I did quite a bit of work in community development finance. So I've been in the community development space for some time, but I wasn't personally involved. So I knew the importance of driving money and funds and capital to communities, to neighborhoods, to businesses. And I thought, well, what am I doing with my funding? So I didn't have a lot of money at the time that I came across Invest for Better. I found out about Janine Firpo's book, which led me to Invest for Better, which led me to the Circle. And the concept of the circle was very interesting to me because it gave me an opportunity to learn more about how to make my money go further while meeting women across the country who were also interested in the same thing. And it also gave me an opportunity to learn from others how they're thinking about their personal finances and how to make an impact. I joined two circles at the same time. I don't recommend that, but it just happened that way, where I was recruited by Vanessa to join a circle. And then there were a number of women in the CDFI space who came together to form a circle. And we talked about all kinds of things, from simply looking at our bank accounts and seeing where our direct deposits are going, to looking at our holdings within our 401ks to see if those are aligned with what we believe in. And it was a really great opportunity. This was during COVID, to meet a number of women who were even thinking about it. And no one was a particular expert, but we were all very interested. And that added to the community. After doing the two circles, Invest for Better offered deep dives. And Vanessa had mentioned kind of these 3-session courses. And I decided to participate in a deep dive for angel investing, because that was a new concept for me. And I led a deep dive on values-based investing. And those were much smaller groups where we spent a lot of time really digging into how to look at the money that we had, the money we wanted to grow, our personal portfolios, and then in the angel investing, trying to figure out, how do we support small businesses who lack access to capital if we're not doing it through our full-time roles, but we have capital that we're able to deploy. And after that, we kept in touch. We kept Google Sheets together with just resources and links, and a community grew. And eventually, Invest for Better Philadelphia was established. And so I was able, especially coming back to my hometown, to find other women locally who were involved as well. So the benefit of participating in everything remotely wasn't just the connection during COVID when it was so tough to feel connected, but it was that you got to meet women from all over who really were thinking about money in the same way. The other thing to mention is that Invest for Better has a fantastic Mighty community where there are resources available. There are videos and webinars of experts talking about everything from estate planning to how to understand debt notes that are offered by community development financial institutions. And it's also another way to connect. So my last venture with Invest for Better was again working with Vanessa. Vanessa was leading a Shaping Your Future with SFSW. Remind me what it is? Shifting Wealth, Shaping
Shifting
Futures. That's what it was.
futures. There you go.
And that was also virtual, but I recruited a friend who recruited a friend. So there were a bunch of friendly faces. And we really looked at the curriculum with the lens of everyone's history is different. Everyone comes to money differently, and history does influence how we view resources. And this was a way to apply that history to the application of your personal and community capital. So it was a really fantastic 8 weeks where we delved into issues that impacted how we move money and how our money can make a great impact. And so now I'm just excited to be back in Philadelphia and to see everything that Invest for Better is doing. We have a very informal community of women that get together to talk about private investments, which has been helpful from an education perspective, as well as figuring out what the next step is. And happy to join, answer any questions as I pass it on. But I will leave you with this. Starting small is perfect. You don't have to have a ton of money to invest to make a difference. And even when you think that you may not be able to invest directly in a company, just looking at where your money's sitting today makes a huge difference in how you can do your own personal impact investing.
Thank you, Jodie. Yeah, I was so excited to have Jodie in that first session for me because I came to it like, oh, who are these women going to be? So I recruited my cousin and an old colleague. I was like, and I wanted to make sure, I'll be honest, that I wasn't the only brown face in the room. So it was really helpful to be able to find some other women of color. So we had a great time. All right, next we're going to hear from Helen Horstmann-Allen.
Hey, everybody. I'm Helen Horstmann-Allen, and I'm one of the founding members of Invest for Better Philadelphia. I got involved by meeting Margaret very shortly before she started the first Philly Circle. And during the whole circle, she kept saying, would anyone want to do this again? Would anybody be interested in doing this again? And I overcommit, and I have a lot of things in my life. And I kept thinking, no, not me. Also, there's so many other women in this room whose day job is around money. One of them will want to do it. But by the fifth session, when she asked again, I said, well, Margaret, I'm not really looking for another volunteer commitment. But if it's going to stop, if I don't step up to say yes, then count me in. And she very quickly said, well, if you'll do it, I'll do it. And we led the second circle together. And Vanessa and I led the third circle together. And I led the fourth circle with a wonderful friend named Shaquila. And I just finished leading the 10th circle about a month ago. So I feel really fortunate to have participated in 50% of all the circles that we've run for Invest for Better Philadelphia. And I do think there are so many things that people have said already that I just want to kind of point out. And the first being, I would say the circle is the beginning for many of the women that we engage with, right? When women say, who are you looking for this? I say, we're looking for everyone, right? This is not a thing where there's some barrier. You have to clear some dollar amount, some education level, some number of accounts. This is for everybody because we have set up a system in America where if you intend to retire in America today, you're already an investor, whether you want to be or not. So I want you to come to the table and I want you to feel that way. I want you to feel that level of power and control. And also, there are so few places that any of us are invited where it is okay to ask the question. And the people who might answer aren't trying to sell you something. In fact, can't sell you something. One of our rules of engagement is no selling inside circles. Don't have a vested interest in what you do, aren't your employer or somehow related to your job, and just can share their own experience, right? And that space in and of itself is incredibly valuable, right? It's not, I'm asking you for your paid advice, but I'm asking you for your experience. Like, has anybody in this room done this? How'd it turn out for you, right? That space and that place to ask those questions is among the most valuable things that I think Invest for Better provides, right? Like, I think the curriculum is incredible. Vanessa, was a terrific partner in walking people through the particulars and really has that deep understanding. And also, lots of our circle facilitators are not financial experts, right? Like, we are not here as teachers, but rather facilitators leading a conversation and leading a journey of self-education and self-discovery towards taking those actions. So I will say one of the questions is, well, what action have you taken? And I was thinking back, and in that very first circle, I thought, wow, this is all great. Like, I'm getting so much really good information. Should I do something? And as Jodie said, I think the idea that you start small, right? You take your first action and see what happens, right? And so my first thing, I realized, oh, I could just change something in my retirement account. No tax consequences. I don't have to think about it too hard. And I'll just keep an eye on it for 3 months. And I would say Jodie is not unusual. We have many of our women who participate in more than one circle, more than one activity. And the beautiful thing about that is if you started an action in the first circle, you then have a reason to look back on it in a later circle, right? Someone will ask you, oh, well, what did you do? And then you think to yourself, oh, I did something. I should go check on that. And so in my case, right, I traded one of my S&P index funds for something more values aligned. And wouldn't you know it, it was doing slightly better than the S&P fund that I had taken the money out of, right? And so I will say, I do think there's a lot of, there can be a lot of an idea, and particularly if you come from this professionally, if you work for a foundation, the idea that impact investing means lower returns. And I think that the groups that do concessionary capital or do those reduced return actions are incredible. And I think, you can hold them out as like really living their organizational values. And also for all the individual, like retail level women who go to our circles, we are not telling them, ignore your returns, right? Like, we're saying, get great returns by moving away from the things that you are unhappy with into the things that you would like to see in this world. All of that being said, to me, the thing that is the greatest is having gathered these women in person, having gathered these women in the city of Philadelphia. Our effect goes well beyond the circles because we see each other face to face, right? Like, our circles are not the only rooms I see these women in, right? Vanessa and I were in the same room yesterday, right? Like, Jodie and I were at an event together a week ago. And that gathering of people in the same physical space, that's what creates the network effect, right? It's not just the education we got together. It's the start of a relationship that then can go on and have many, many, many different layers, right? And so, like, you all can't see each other, but I can see many of you. And so I can see so many women who have participated in our events, whether it's been a circle or not, people who have been referred to us by friends. So I hope you'll all like come and join a future circle. But this community is continuing to grow, and we're growing starting from this base place of these circles. This is the beginning of the journey that we're on together. But like, we are continuing to walk out into other spaces, other rooms, other projects with a new community, a new network of women. And we're all focused not just on the financial returns or the financial education, but the goal of aligning our money with the world we want to live in. And that to me is the really powerful thing for each individual woman in the circles, for the larger community in the city of Philadelphia, and like for all of us as a community of women, encouraging and cheering each other on to like take power into our own hands towards the future we want to live in.
Thank you, Helen. I want to pick up on, I just put something in the chat. Hopefully it went to everyone. It's an article called The Violence of Market Rate Returns. Helen brought up the issue of this sort of existence of the idea that, well, can I really make money if I try to align my values? And so that's out there. This article essentially talks about how the market rate return, she used the word concessionary, right? Meaning, well, somebody's paying for it, so I'm paying for it by not getting as much back as what often people think of if they're going to do aligned investing. But the fact is, when you think of particularly something like the Magnificent Seven, that have made a lot of money and continue to make a lot of money. Somebody just became a trillionaire. When you look at where have the concessions been made, it's been made by our planet, often by the workers and employees, and essentially the communities that they operate in. So it's a really, really great article. It came across my feed and now I follow. It's called the Delta Fund. And so anyway, just wanted to share that with folks because I think we need to start thinking about when the things that are making money, where have the concessions been made? And that's the kind of economy that we need to think about if we really want to return to an economy or get to an economy that prioritizes people and planet and continued life. Okay, that's it on that little soapbox there. Okay, I think it's my turn to tell my stories, right? Let's get the slides back up. All right, so I'm a data person and I keep track of all sorts of things, including dates, and it was so exciting to go on this journey with Invest for Better that I started tracking and sort of seeing, okay, well, where am I now? I started with that. I retired at the age of 56 from federal service. I spent 21 years, first at the CDFI fund for about 7 years. That's where Jodie and I met. And that is a division of US Treasury that supports access to capital for underserved communities through financial institutions. We certify them, we funded them, really wonderful agency that is now quite a bit under attack. But anyway, so I retired after those 21 years, and I finally had access to my own money. With our retirement accounts, we kind of can't touch that. And that was the source of pretty much most of my portfolio. And at that time, because I had already started investing in the ETF, electronically traded fund, that was created in partnership with the NAACP. It's called the NACP fund. And it essentially uses the data that the NAACP has been using more than, I think, 25 or 30 years, looking at, well, what companies are not really aligned with African Americans and our values and things like that. So that was an investment I made probably as soon as it came out almost. And it is a S&P-like fund. So it tries to sort of stay up to date with the S&P, and in fact, it's done a little better in some years. So that was August 21. I did that sort of baseline. Okay, where am I now? And then I was participating in a circle with Jermaine Foley and Carrie Norton as a participant. That's where I had recruited my cousin and Jodie. And it was session number 6, I believe, and it was all about private investing. And I was like, I'm loving this. This is great. I had never done anything like that before. I had been hearing about venture capital, but had a pretty negative sort of opinion of it, or based on who I was seeing was doing it. But they told me about a particular organization called Portfolia, And it was actually Janine Firpo, the author of the book, who was doing that session for us. And that this particular venture capital fund was started by a woman who had led training for venture capitalists, particularly for people of color and women, when she was at the Kauffman Foundation, which is a foundation that's been a longtime supporter of entrepreneurship. So she'd done great work there, trained a lot of people, and was like, I'm still not focusing enough on what I really want to focus on now, which is women. So she started a venture capital fund. And by the time, I think it was started in about 12 or so, years later, when I, was in that session, I learned about a fund that was called the Rising America Fund. And that was one of their funds where they actually said that it was the first venture capital fund led by an all women of color team, 3 African Americans and 2 Latinas, and that the requirements for the businesses that could get into the fund and get funded was they had to be either BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and or LGBTQ. And so I was like, this is checking a lot of boxes that really work. So within the next 6 months, I was starting to invest. But in between, I was so excited about what I had learned and just participating. And, I'm liking this. So in January 2022, I co-led a circle for the first time with a Canadian woman named Fatima Kamenji. And I was really committed to, the circles were wonderful. I loved being in my circle. That was a mixed circle, but the opportunity to offer a circle for women of color, I felt like maybe there might be a different kind of conversation, particularly around some of the sort of backstory. It can be hard to sort of, hey, session number 1, we want you to sort of tell maybe some really sensitive stuff about the backstory. So I was like, let's do this at least in, maybe a more sort of restricted group. So that was a wonderful experience. But yeah, by January 23, I had closed on, October 21 was when I did the Rising America Fund. By January 23, I did my next investment with Portfolio, which was a special purpose vehicle, which is a way of doing private investing to invest directly in Portfolio as a business. And then not long after that, they were offering an opportunity to invest in Grub Market, which if you haven't heard of Grub Market, it essentially has realigned the whole process of how food gets from farms to the grocery stores and then to your tables. And by using technology, essentially sort of taking the middlemen out, who were making a lot of money, that if we use technology, then we can make this a much more streamlined opportunity. They have not yet gone public, but they're often on the list of they'll soon go public. Next slide, please. And so that's a picture at the bottom, sorry, of the from the Portfolio page of the Rising America team. All right, so then fall 23 came, and I was a participant in the first local Philly IFB circle with Margaret Berger Bradley and Melina Harris. And man, that was a big circle compared to other circles that I had been in or participated in. I think there were like almost 20 people in that one. Spring 24, I co-led a Women of Color circle again with a woman named Charnay Robinson Williams, and then did some more investing. So now I was involved with a group called Investor Circle, which you can look up. It is now, it's been around for many years as a national organization, but it had sort of city, like in San Francisco and New York and other places, they would have communities of people come together and focus on impact investing, often in local communities. Okay, can we find, the local, African-American who needs to buy the building or something like that. So highly impactful, very much individuals. And so I started attending the meetings here in Philadelphia, and I got turned on to something that I had been exposed to because it was a local company called Simply Good Jars. And not to go into too much of my personal stuff, but I'm somebody who doesn't like salad so much, I'll admit. And as I'm sitting in this meeting, they bring up Simply Good Jars. And I was like, wait a minute, I remember Simply Good Jars. It is a B Corp, which is a sort of designation for a company that's trying to, again, be aligned in its values, focus on doing right by the employees and things like that, and offer a good product. And so this is a product where it's a chef who started making salads in jars and then selling them both in refrigerator kiosks in our train station, but also in something called Reading Terminal. We're here in Philadelphia. And one year I went to the B Corp conference, and it was an all-day conference. And so this was before I knew about these jars. And I was so disappointed because all they had on the table for lunch were these jars. And I was like, I'm going to hate this. I opened up this jar and I had the most amazing experience of like, my God, this is amazing. It was so good. So as I'm sitting in this investor circle being pitched to by the founder of Simply Good Jars, I was like, I'm in. So that was my first sort of direct individual investment as opposed to the venture capital fund. And I'll share here because we've got a little time. I'm going to add a little bit more. The venture capital fund, somebody else is making the decisions as to who they're going to invest in. So it was a great way for me not to sort of have to learn all this stuff about how do I find an individual investment. So just wanted to sort of put that out there as something to think about if you join a circle and as you move along that journey, particularly of private investment. But here I was like, I knew enough about this company. I was like, this is going to be a good one. So I invested in that. And then the legislation had passed under the Obama administration for regular folks who were not of high wealth to also be able to invest in private investments. Before that legislation, essentially, you had to have a minimum net worth of $1 million or make either $200,000 or $300,000 annually. And so with the crowdfunding legislation that was passed, essentially a series of websites were developed and created in order for regular folks to then make smaller investments in private companies. And so one of them that I had a great appreciation for was Honeycomb Credit, which some of the other women on here are familiar with. They've been at our ImpactPHL conference. It's a well-respected company. And somebody told me about this opportunity where this woman here on the right, she makes meals for folks. And that was her business. It was going along just fine for years and years. The main source of income was she's serving seniors, so she got federal money. And the system that paid out to people like her was broken, no fault of her own. So she got onto this platform and created an opportunity to make a loan for us to make a loan and support her. So that was my first crowdfunding investment. Next slide, please. And I just love that it was a Black woman in New Jersey, which is a neighbor to me. So it just felt like that's very much aligned. And I will say here, because I talk a lot, I try to say in each class, because we want folks to know what they're trying to follow, right? So we actually use the UN Sustainable Development Goals when we start to talk about, well, what are your values? You're not locked into those, but there's 17 of those. So it helps people to sort of think about, okay, well, where might I fit in? And so I often say during my sessions, I remind them, so my alignments, I want them to be with racial justice, gender justice, and or climate justice. Now, one of the things I like to say to folks from the beginning is there is no such thing as perfect, particularly in impact investing. So I hold 2 S&P funds, Standard & Poor's funds. One of them has no fossil fuels. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it has all the other S&P, funds. So I really wanted to, I love this. It was started by a woman. It's doing great things. The other one, the NACP fund, though, that still has fossil fuels in it because that wasn't the criteria necessarily that the NAACP was using. So for me, though, I am still aligning with my values as much as I can with the level of products and services that are on the market now. So I put that out there because a lot of people get frustrated. It's like, well, this one has that and that one has that. Yeah, right. There is no perfect right now, but there are a lot more options than there were, say, 25 years ago when pretty much all I could focus on was CDFIs, community development financial institutions. The fact that we have S&P alternatives such that we can still be in the market and make the returns that we need in order to retire is important to me. Let's see. So, okay, fall 24, again, co-led with Helen Horstmann-Allen. And then it was Shifting Wealth, Shaping Futures. We launched that. That curriculum, it was, they, Invest for Better got a grant to do that. It was a curriculum designed particularly for Black women, to speak to Black women. We had been giving them some feedback about, might be better if we did this, that kind of thing. And so they got that grant, launched the new curriculum that was Shifting Wealth, Shaping Futures. It was the same material, but with a little different focus and a little more information really focused on us, giving more of our history. And after we launched that in 2025, it's got modified a little bit so that it's more generic for all communities. And so now that is the curriculum that we are using going forward. That is the standard curriculum for Invest for Better. And it's now called, I think, Invest Your Values. In January 25, I had actually heard about Sphere Fund earlier in the year. And Sphere Fund is an S&P 500 product started by a woman who had created a product to help with climate change. In sixth grade, she was like told by her teacher about climate change. She's like, I want to deal with this. And so she started a company. 3 years into the company, she wanted to offer a retirement plan, couldn't find a retirement plan that didn't have fossil fuels. We're a climate justice company. How can we not have that? So she decided to create her own. So it is an S&P 500 fund that also doesn't have the usual sin stocks and things like that, but it has no direct fossil fuel investment. So I moved some of my money there. In January 25, I moved the rest of my money. And so I liquidated everything from the federal government where it was still sitting in their plan and moved it out. Today I am at, so I was at 23%. Alignment in terms of my holdings. Today, I'm at 52% because of the changes that I made through my work there with good old Invest for Better. I think that's it for me. Is there a next slide? There we go. Oh, yes, let me tell you. So there are actually 17 circles starting at the national level in September. I am leading another Women of Color circle with Rhonda on the right there, who was one of the people who was in my Shifting Wealth, Shaping Futures class. And we will meet on Thursday, starting on 9/17. So spread the word and come join us. Next slide, please. All right, I think we're at the end, and we've got,
We're
this is
open for
perfect.
questions.
Yeah, fantastic. Now you have to put them in the chat. Unfortunately, we can't do it live. Sorry about that.
And I've been trying to respond to some of those that were in the chat because I know we'd never have enough time in the 10 minutes available to respond. And certainly as this is shared back out again, reach out to any of us, and you can reach out to us as well at philly@investforbetter.org with any of the questions that relate directly to how Invest for Better partners with other organizations, which there were some good questions here about that, as well as what are the little steps. Someone had asked more about what are little steps you can take, and how do you take from what Vanessa, Jodie, and Helen just shared and think about what that means for you. I think, Helen, you didn't fess up on this, though you share it all the other times, that it took 3 sessions before.
Yes, yes. So at the end of every session, we say, "What are your goals?" And some people, it's like just keep reading or just keep doing research. And I was really moved by the banking one. That felt really straightforward. The idea that a bank can loan 10 times what I gave them, and looking at what my current bank was doing with my money, which was nothing great. I was like, "Great, this is so straightforward. I'm going to move to a credit union. They are keeping my money local. They are loaning to homeowners and auto loans and small businesses, and it's all staying here in Philly." And 3 circles, I said that was my goal, because each time I was like, yeah, but when am I going to go do that? That's such a pain in the butt. The 4th circle, I was like, I can't I can't do this a fourth time. I will go. And I moved to Philadelphia Federal Credit Union. And when I walked out of the bank that day with my little folder with my new account, I sent a picture to everyone in the previous three circles as well as the fourth circle and got, a million messages back. So yeah, I mean, I think it can feel like, oh, well, private investing, or it's an action someone else can take with some larger amount of money. But in reality, everybody's got a bank account. Um, you may or may not have control over your current retirement account, but you've ever had another job, this is a reason to do your rollover, right? Because once it's in a rollover account, you have a lot more control over it. And there are smaller things you can do too, right? I put in the chat about honeycomb investments. I know Vanessa, Margaret, and I have all made honeycomb investments. Those start at $100, right? And like, it's not risk-free. But it is a way to look at how you're aligning with your money. Like, I think we talk a lot about like, what is the impact at a particular level? And it's true that the impact available to you is not always equal, right? Like, you could screen a lot of things out of the S&P 500 and you still might only feel like all I'm doing is taking away the bad stuff. That's real. But talking about, if you have bonds, people who borrow money, right? Cities borrow money and private prisons borrow money and solar installations borrow money, right? Like, and they're roughly paying the same returns, right? Like, so there are choices at every level. And it's kind of a question of what matters to you. What are you trying to move the needle on? And not, well, I can only do something if I've got $100,000 to do something with, right? Like, there are little things available everywhere. And so I will say one of the things I like best about Invest for Better is I don't need to find every single one of them, right? I can talk to Vanessa and say, hey, Vanessa, what have you moved into? Like, anything you've done that you like. And then she'll tell me, and I'm like, okay, she told me about 6 things and only 2 of them resonate with me, but I can go with those 2. And then I'm put that into my bundle that I can share to the next person.
Part of our interest here in the world of community investment or impact investing more broadly, it's been slow coming. So for many years ago, I asked a wealth manager who will remain nameless, do you have interest or do you have demand? And they kind of smiled. And then 8 years ago, I asked the question again. And the answer is in many places, there was more interest, but not yet really economic demand. So part of what we're trying to do too is just warm ourselves up. There are questions in the chat here about other orientations. We don't talk about reparations. We don't talk about that kind of investment strategy. But once you start getting receptive to thinking about what do I want money to do, you're then more ready to have any of these other conversations. So we are trying to be that startup, that warming tray, that readiness, and then find ways that we connect. Of the 200 of us, 40 of us are interested in private investing right now. Might a slice of us be interested in understanding what you can do with donor advised funds? Might a slice of us want to learn more about reparative investment? And how do we start growing it from there and engaging men as well? But our focus right now is just finding that building of muscle for the whole variety of women who may have interest in exploring it.
And we welcome you all to join us. I'm putting the link to the Women of Color Circle that I'm starting in the chat right now. So check that out.
And investforbetter.org/Philly, which I know Corey put in here. If you indicate in there that you're looking for something different, we'll make sure that we get you connected with the Women of Color Circle. Or if you say, I can only do one that's on a weekend, we'll connect you back for that as well. There are plenty of options. And part of this is for most women, there's no time in the day to think about something extra like this. So wherever there is a little window, we want to make sure that we find a way to make this accessible to you. So if what we're talking about isn't what you're interested in yet, let us know what would meet your needs. This is about a community, as I hope you can hear from all these other voices too. It's no one person, it's a good community. So thank you, Vanessa.
Well, and I
I'm
guess
glad we found the live. let me just go through the last slide because we might lose some folks. So join us, sign up for an in-person circle. Next circle starts in Center City, Philadelphia for the Philadelphia group. A circle of color done by Vanessa and Rhonda. I put that in the chat. And a virtual circle is coming for Philadelphia. So that's great. And then you can sign up for the newsletter by going to investforbetter.org/Philly. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jodie, you were talking.
Well, there are a couple questions in the chat about the focus of the circles and then applying the circle or talking about broader, more societal investment. And I think the circles allow you to find like-minded people. So what ends up happening, at least in my circles, at the end of the official session, we just got to talking. And then you got to understand where people were coming from, and you found other people who thought, I'm learning about private investment. How can I take this into my profession, or how can I talk to other people about how to make collective private investments? So to Eve's point, there are opportunities to talk about how you can broaden this to make an impact in a larger way. And you will likely find people who are interested in having that discussion. And then we have another question about a circle for people who are first generation college graduates, professionals. I don't think there is a circle with that focus, but again, you find people who come to these circles who have shared experiences that are always helpful. And so I wouldn't wait for that circle where you're looking for people who are exactly like you. But if this touches a place where you want to learn more about how to think differently about your money and how it can impact you in your personal context, I would start with a circle and see where it goes.
Mhm.
And I will
And
say,
maybe
as
we'll
the
lead it.
Philadelphia, yeah, well, and as the Philadelphia community grows, right? Like, I think we are finding an appetite for different segments of women to carry on smaller groups together, right? And so, come join us, be part of our community, and I can tell you for sure, we have first generation college graduates and professionals in our community already who are hoping to meet you.
Mhm.
Yes, 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 yes. So many opportunities. Last night, Helen, say a little bit about where we were last night. We went and supported Helen. It was so great. We were in a
Last
bar.
night, last night we were at Ignite Philly where I gave a 5-minute talk on Investor Better. But I will say, I mean, there were probably 100 people in that room and 10 of us were Investor Better women, right? Like, we are in more places than you think. And once you come be part of our community, you will discover that we are already around you in so many places.
Thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Corey to do a goodbye because we have met our time.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, want to thank all the panelists and Vanessa for moderating and sharing your time and your experience with us. Um, like Helen said, I think the opportunity to connect with other people that are interested in doing this and compare notes is something I'm jealous of. So I'm also excited about what Margaret said about engaging men because, I've been on the outside of this. We helped to recruit for the very first class. I'm very excited about the success of Invest for Better Philadelphia and promote it every chance we get. So I'm excited to see where this is all going and maybe have the opportunity to engage myself at some point. So very excited about that. So thanks again for all the panelists and thanks again to all of you for attending here today. We'll have the video out in about a week or so. You'll get it in your email. It'll be on the website. Please feel free to share this when you get it out. Again, we want this to spread far and wide. I think like Vanessa was just saying, it's sort of like a do-gooder cult in a good way that we want to get this out to everyone that it might be of interest to. So with that, I'll wrap us up. I think we're wrapping up right on time and hopefully we'll see you again soon.